Welcome to day 11 of our Wellness Bootcamp for Quarantine. Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Minke. This is Minke Wellness. And we have going to explore stress in a different way. I know you're kind of like, yeah, we've been doing stress a lot. Well, there's so many different aspects to stress that are useful, and it's such an important skill to be able to manage stress. So let's look at a different way of thinking about stress. So and today we're going to talk about adrenal stress, adrenal fatigue, and sleep, and how those two kind of go together. Because you've heard that it's important to get your sleep, and if we're cranked up, we don't get good sleep. So let's look at this and find out some things that we might be able to use to intervene, both in thought and breath and essential oil, that might be able to help us in this category. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the adrenal system and how we use or overuse the adrenal system in our everyday life. And so we tend to use stress or push the adrenal button, as I say. We kind of squeeze those adrenal glands, get a little bit more adrenaline to pump out of there, and that gets us going. That increases the activity in the muscles. It increases the activity for the brain, and it actually increases cortisol, which decreases pain levels. So there's a number of kind of easy reasons we can see why we want to, in our stress life, in our go kind of life, why we want to push those adrenal glands and get the benefit of that. The problem is that we're not really designed to sustain a lot of aggressive adrenal activity. That kind of activity is supposed to be rare, an occasional burst of energy that's needed to protect ourselves from danger, that kind of thing. And what we end up doing in our modern world is creating situations where we're all, this is life-threatening. Now, ironically, we're in this sort of middle of this pandemic, which some could argue, wait a minute, this is real. This really is a situation where I need to be up. And well, I don't know. In fact, yes, I understand what you're saying on that, but I think that the skill for managing the adrenal response is even more important during a time like this, when your immediate safety is really not threatened, and this is a long-term scenario. And again, it's not a short-term, immediate, urgent, oh my gosh, I need to run away from the lion that's about to eat me. It's rather, okay, how do I manage stress on a longer-term basis? So using the adrenal system during this time is really quite a challenge, and something that I think is going to harm long-term. And I think it's something we've already been doing in our culture. So let's talk a little bit about kind of some ways we can intervene with that. First of all, this idea of adrenaline and adrenal, pushing the adrenal glands, we do this with caffeine. And so hopefully this situation that we're in quarantine allows us to take less caffeine. In other words, we're drinking less coffee, I would hope, because we don't have to rush to get out. I mean, in fact, by working from home, we're saving hours in the day that we don't have to get up and prepare to get for the day and go. We can just kind of roll out and stay lazy in our pajamas, put a shirt on and have pajama bottoms while we're doing a video or on Zoom or whatever it is. And so that actually should save us from some of the need for that push of coffee or caffeine or whatever our source of caffeine is. Now, let me point out something about caffeine and caffeine overdose. When they were doing research in the 70s about caffeine, because it was just more and more we were understanding that we can study the physiology in detail. We had a lot more tests available. We had a lot of blood tests. We could test for adrenal hormones. And so they were looking at, okay, what happens with caffeine and how much caffeine is too much. And they decided after some research in the 70s that if that an adult person would start to see clinical signs of caffeine overdose at about 100, over 100 milligrams, if it was 105, 110 milligrams of caffeine. Interestingly, there's about 60 milligrams of caffeine in a kind of average size, largish coffee cup of coffee, and we're not talking about super duper espresso stuff, but 60 milligrams. So we're talking about 2 cups of coffee puts your average adult person over the limit for experiencing caffeine effects. And this is what they would call caffeine overdose. And at that time, caffeine overdose was considered to be anxiety, increased heart rates, trouble sleeping, these kind of things, and jittery, whatever. Well, now I looked at recently, it was last year, so recently relative to the 70s. I looked at the current wisdom on how much caffeine is too much, and now they've raised the bar all the way over to 500. So all of a sudden, the human physiology is able to tolerate 5 times more caffeine? No, I don't think so. So my interpretation of that sort of quote unquote wisdom, and this is like Mayo Clinic, this is the type of thing, because how much caffeine is too much, you can Google that. And I think what's happened is our baseline stress level has gotten so high that we're not actually exhibiting caffeine overdose symptoms anymore, because that's just our norm. And so my point on this is that caffeine can be something we can use, but let's be reasonable and responsible with this. And if you can work toward getting your caffeine levels under 100 milligrams for the day, that includes chocolate and sodas, and shouldn't really be doing sodas anyway, but the coffee, tea, green tea, all the different sources of caffeine. So let's try to get those down to below 100. So that would be a good wellness goal. Now, one of the things that happens as we start to back down off of caffeine or start to explore ways to calm down the adrenal system is we end up feeling tired. And we kind of blame it on, well, of course you're tired, you're not doing the caffeine. But I really want to give a different perspective. You're tired because your body is tired. We're finally not just stimulating it artificially with a chemical, with caffeine, and now we get to experience the norm. What is the body really telling us? The body is really saying, I'm tired. And so if we keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing and ignore that signal, just like any other signal we tend to ignore in the body, then we end up with problems. We end up with some kind of crisis in the wellness category, which we want to avoid. So let's look at how we can intervene, and I'm going to just talk about a few skills and activities and interventions we can do. The first, when we talk about calming the adrenal system, and again, this kind of leads to sleep, because what we're talking about here is if we goose the adrenal system, it does end up interrupting our sleep. So if we go to bed and the last thing we're thinking about or watching, and we're watching a movie that's stressful, or we're watching the news, and then we try to go to bed, we've gotten all cranked up, that is going to affect the quality of our sleep. So what are some things we can do? Deep breathing is absolutely one of the best ways to reset the adrenal glands. So before bed, it makes sense, as I lie down, do a little bit of belly breathing, maybe 8 to 10 breaths, 12 breaths, count 10 breaths that you're going to do that are deep belly breathing breaths, diaphragm breathing, and we can link a thought to this to calm the adrenal glands down. So what I like to do is I like to breathe in calm, and I kind of use that as a blue color, whatever works for you, but I'll breathe in to the adrenal glands. So with my mind, I'll kind of, as I breathe into my body, I'll reach in down to my consciousness, with my consciousness down to my adrenal glands, which are above the kidneys in the back. And I kind of imagine them and I picture them, and I want them to be a nice shade of blue, calm, or maybe pinkish calm, instead of flared, swollen, angry. You know what I'm saying? As you kind of, if I could imagine my adrenal glands, what would they look like? They're complete, or they're black and crispy, all burnt up and shredded, burnt to a crisp. And so we don't want that kind of image. The body is talking to us when we ask for an image. When you use a breath and ask for an image, the body is talking to us. So I can breathe in calm, breathe into the adrenal glands and breathe calm and reach into the adrenal glands and just kind of massage those even with my mind. Now, what's interesting about using breath is we can actually combine this with something like an essential oil. So here we have lavender oil. It's in our kit. And it's been well documented to help calm things down. And there is a very famous, very well respected, world renowned medical aromatherapist, Jean-Claude Lapraz, Dr. Lapraz, and I heard him say that if you use lavender every day for, it was 6 to 9 months. I mean, it depends on the person, but 6 months, every day for 6 months, you'll end up recharging the adrenal glands. On the bottom of the feet at bedtime. A couple drops of lavender on the bottom of the feet at bedtime, and you'll end up resetting the adrenal glands, how easy is that? That's pretty easy to do. So we can put it on the bottom of the feet before bed. We can also breathe it in. And so this is, just again, we've got about 100 drops in a 5 ml bottle. And so that's, if we did 2 drops a day, that's 50 days that we could do some lavender on the bottom of the feet. Just see what it does for you. So again, a couple drops, spread, inhale, and I'm going to imagine that oil going down to my adrenal glands. I get the combination of the deep breathing with the oil, the effects of the oil, and then I can rub the rest of it on the back of my neck, as you've seen us do a number of times. And this is a way to really work on those adrenal glands to calm down. Now, of course, we can help the adrenal glands along the way. We can do this kind of thing all throughout the day. And so as the stress level goes up, we can intervene with an oil, bring that stress level under control. Stress level goes back up, we bring it down under control. Stress level goes up, bring it back. So if we can do this kind of intervention several times throughout the day, then by the time we get to the end of the day at the time of point of sleep, our stress level is not way up here. It's more manageable. It's more here. So we can do this in a number of different ways and combine some of these things we've already talked about, using stress away, using peace and calming, and then adding lavender right before bed. Great way to end the day. And of course, we can focus on happy thoughts. We can focus on affirmation. One of my favorite affirmations is, "My sleep is relaxed and refreshing." And just to prepare myself and settle into sleep and bless myself with good sleep. Ask for God's blessing we talk about bedtime, prayers and asking for the blessings of good sleep and being protected and safe during sleep. And that's just, this is an age-old practice. Some of these things just make sense. So let's play with calming the adrenal glands down today, getting in touch with what kinds of things we're pushing the adrenal glands. So that would be kind of in our stop poisoning or stop pushing the adrenal gland category, stop poisoning stop hurting the body. And then how do we get to calm this sort of more of the stress management, manage our stress? How do we calm down those adrenals with breath, with essential oils, with our thoughts, and work on feeling what it's like to ease that in. Now, don't be surprised. Like I said, don't be too disappointed and surprised that as you do this, when you first start getting into working on the adrenal system to get it to calm down, you do feel tired. And it's not that that's a failure of what you're doing. It's an actual statement of how your body really is. So we really want authentic, stable energy, not artificial energy that we use, artificial means to get us up. We want to have good sustained energy, and we can talk more about how to get good sustained energy. One of the ways is intermittent fasting, but there's maybe I'll have a chance to talk about that as part of the boot camp. But the basics here are to get some lavender on the bottom of the feet before bed. That's a simple practice, and use a couple breaths. Happy wellness, one day at a time.